Well, it's interesting because the summit was actually designed to really highlight three themes, and that it turned out that we picked ones that were really quite robust. The first one was this theme of leadership, and that really came out of the work of the school and really caught by the tagline, leaders that make a difference, which is what we've been talking about for the last 10 years. The second theme, which was the one that turned out to be the most important, and oddly enough was the third one at it, was the very future and context of managerial capitalism. That going back almost 2 years ago, Joe Bauer and I sat down, and Joe talked about how capitalism was really evolving in very different ways in different parts of the globe. And that led to a series of video interviews which he conducted in business leaders in Paris, Hong Kong, Latin America, and New York. And that sort of vividly caught out how that capitalism was being developed in very different parts of the world. It also at that time led me to decide that one of the taglines of the school from the very beginning with Dean Edwin Gay was the idea that our mission is to train leaders to make a decent profit decently. And it was the second decently which really created the whole need for business as a profession and took it beyond the mechanics of marketing production to a broader social mission. The third one is globalization, and the notion that we live in a completely global, interlinked world, but globalization is a very complicated thing. And so the notion of how to think about the pluses, the minuses, and strain lines of this global economy, that was the third theme. Each of those, as I look back over the 2.5 days, basically was developed in ways that we had hoped and really kind of set the context for a message we think is enduring. I think it's interesting in the height of the financial crisis that people like Jeff Immelt at GE, Jamie Dimon, chairman of JP Morgan, and Rick Wagner at General Motors, all of whom organizations were facing significant challenges, basically protected their diary and showed up on schedule. That I think is just a remarkable tribute to the affection of our alumni. It also, I think, is a tribute to the remarkable people we have been able to, in fact, attract to the Harvard Business School. So that this was an enormous support by the Harvard Business School faculty as well as by our alumni, to put together what was really an extraordinary event. We use the summit as the sort of the closing event of our whole year of centennial celebration to trigger a series of events and research projects beforehand. For example, that under the leadership of Nitin Noria and Rakesh Khanna, we put together a remarkable 3-day conference on leadership. It was a conference that had 15 commissioned papers. A book is coming out of it, and the whole purpose of that was to drive the importance of leadership as an area of managerial study right to the top. And Nitin Noria, who was the co-chair of that conference, then was responsible for running the plenary panel on leadership the second day. So that similarly, for the future of the MBA program, that we use the centennial year under the leadership of David Garvin and Srikant Tatar to go out and write 6 case studies on 6 very different kind of MBA programs. We spent, those cases were discussed for 2 days by a group of academics from various universities. It was then brought to the Harvard Business School faculty last May, where we spent 2 days debating those cases and trying to figure out what the future of this would mean for our MBA program. And there was one other very important objective that when Jay Light asked me to do this, and he said, we want this to be a very important transforming event for our alumni. But this is an opportunity to really work with the faculty as a whole. A faculty as a whole younger faculty, older faculty who may have come from other schools, to really get them to understand the mission and the objective of the Harvard Business School. And this one we delivered absolutely on. That we had almost all of our faculty attend the entire 2 days, that it actually touched. It touched a nerve span, which I think is going to pay huge dividends over the years. The first one is that it was Bill Gates's whole talk. It was an armchair conversation between him and my colleague Jim Cash. That wasn't a bit how I planned to do it, but Jim called me up the week before and said, Warren, that Bill will be much happier in an armchair discussion. And it just simply caught the counterpoint. Arguably America's most successful innovator and creator of a major corporation, talking completely about the softer side of business foundation, but bringing the same hard thinking he brought to building Microsoft to really making the foundation reach out, into a appropriate way. I think that was a very high point. I think Jaime Ayala, when talking about going back from the Harvard Business School to the Philippines and finding that all the tools and techniques, that he had learned at HBS somehow didn't deal with the realities of working in a third world country and having to sort of basically go back and rethink the social context. Much of what we've been doing in the last 15 years at HBS is to try and do that job, better. Jamie Dimon, talking about what it was like to be fired, from Citibank, and what that actually led to his thought processes as he went on to, of course, be head of what is probably arguably the most successful U.S. financial institution today. Those were, I think, particularly memorable moments. I might also mention that again that Larry Summers' terrific address talking about the complexities facing the economy. I mean, those are just 4 highlights for me personally.